Hello everyone. Welcome to day 9, Python for beginners. Today we are going to start, file handling. So why do we need the file handling? Okay. So far we have seen in Python there are different constructs we have learned, right? From the very beginning we learned about strings. We learned about some conditional statements, if, as, elif, etc. We have learned about uh, loops. We have learned uh, functions. We have learned recursive functions and so many things. But what happens, all the processing we have been doing so far, this processing is happening inside one we discussed, like ephemeral memory, right? The memory which is temporary. So if you are doing any processing, if you are creating any variables, this data will be lost once this your system gets restarted, or you simply end the program after the program is over. Whatever the computations you did, whatever the results you have created, what those all the computations, or basically the results, the variables that you had, this data will be lost. Okay. And if next time you want to do the same processing, you will have to redo it, and then again the same computations will be done, and means, of course, the compute power is being used again. Compute resources, you are utilizing the memory again, and you are using the CPU time. So in order to avoid, if something like there are some activities in which we don't want to be doing the same thing again and again. For example, let's say we have some students have participated in an examination, and that examination results we want to store, we want to compute the results. Okay, in different subjects students have got marks, and the final result we would like to store permanently in a file, because let's say the last year some exams happened. Okay, we are not going to compute every time we have to do that computation. We don't have to do it again and again, and we can generate the outcome in a file. Okay, now files are for persisting the information. Persisting means permanently storage. Okay, so if something you want to create, okay, that stage in computer memory or somewhere stored, which can be reused later on, okay, we need to create store the data in a file. Okay, and we call this concept as data persistence. So what is data persistence? Persist means you want to permanently store. You want whatever you did, whatever you generated, you want it to be retained. Okay, let's say you are creating a very beautiful graphic. Okay, and that graphic you want to be stored as a file. Okay, so that means you can load this file later on and see that graphic what you created. You don't have to create from scratch again, right? So that's why we need file handling. File handling is required because we need to persist our work. We want to transfer that into a permanent storage so that this work can be reused later on. We can open the file and we can do the necessary processing on it. Either we want to just do the listing, we want to do the printing, we want to do whatever we want. Okay, all those things can be done on the file. So files are basically a way to store data permanently beyond program execution. Then it can also be used for data sharing. So let's say you did some computations, some results are there, and whatever the results are, you store them in a file, you generate them in a file, and then this file can be shared between different parts of the program, or even completely different programs. So either within the same program, whatever the outcome you have done, so maybe in one part of the program you have generated some output, and then in another part you want to use it as an input, so you can do that. Or maybe there are two different programs, program 1 and program 2. Program 1 generates some output, and program 2 uses that output as an input for doing some other processing, right? So let's say we have written a program to generate a file of the total marks obtained by different students in the class. So that can be one program. Now the output is generated and we store all the data in a file. Then we write another program. Another program will be reading the inputs from the aggregated sum of those from the previous file we generated in the previous program. The second program we can write in order to find out who are the top 3 students in the class, right? So second program takes the first output of the first program and generates the let's say the top 3 students, okay, in the class. First student, second student, third student, highest marks obtained by these students. So this is the marks obtained. You are identifying who is first, second, and third student in the class. Okay. You can use it for data backup also. So create copies of important files to prevent data loss. So you can basically, if a file is there on your computer and if it is very, very important, maybe you can create multiple copies. So once you store the data in the file format, so file can be copied, okay, and you can keep maybe one file on the same file on computer 1 and computer 2 together, so that if something goes wrong with computer 1, your data is not lost. So we call it data backup. We create a backup copy, a duplicate of the data, so that in case of an emergency, if for some reason data on one of the computers is lost, the other one is available as a backup to me. We also use files for configuration purpose. What is configuration? So some programs, let's say some programs require certain inputs to work on. Okay. For example, if I'm writing a program to do some computations on numbers, and let's say these computations are country specific. So maybe I want to store somewhere the which country, okay, I'm running this program for. So if I'm running, let's say I'm running it for India, then the tax applicable is GST in India. And if the same program is used in London, so there is VAT over there. So maybe the VAT computations are to be performed on the data, okay, on the numbers. So it's the same program, computation logic and everything remains same, but only thing is it changes whether it will be VAT or it will be GST based on the country that you are running the program into. So such settings which change from one environment to another environment, or one location to another location, or one user to another user, okay, these are known as configuration settings. Is it making sense? Give me thumbs up if you're clear on configuration or you need more clarity. Okay, Janvi. Others? Okay, Angel. Prachi, are you good with the configuration? Prachi, please confirm. Prachi, are you there? Okay, no issues. We will proceed. Prachi, it seems you are not able to hear me. You are on mute. Okay, it seems he's away. All right, no problem. We'll proceed. So next is logging. Logging means you can record certain events and errors for debugging and analysis purpose. Okay, so what it does, so logging means suppose you are writing a program and then suppose there were some inputs made by the user and some computations were done, and then maybe you got some decision making done. So at every step, if you want to maintain some logs are basically additional information that you want to store in a file that provides you later on what exactly happened, how did you reach to the conclusion. So suppose you are saying a person's text computation you are doing, and text computation there are different steps, so you can log different things. What, okay, we computed this, so at this stage 1 this is the outcome, stage 2 this is the outcome, stage 3 this is the outcome. You can do the logs. You can also log the errors if there is an error in computation, okay, or warnings or alerts. So these can be stored in the logs. So we call them the logging. This is the logging process. Now, how do we do file handling in operations in Python? In Python, we require, means any language generally, we require an open function. So every file means a collection of data stored onto computers permanent storage. Permanent storage is known as, anyone wants to answer? In a computer, where is the data stored permanently on your system? Who wants to answer? Please type in chat. Okay, that is basically hard disk where you store the data. Thank you, Janvi. Yeah, you're right. So the data is stored in the hard disk. Hard disk is a permanent storage. So in your computer, you have RAM, or we call it simply the memory sometimes. Okay, and then we have the hard disk. Hard disk is your persistent memory where you store permanent data permanently, and that you can reuse later on. Okay, so in order to create a file or to read data from a file, okay, you need to use certain functions. Okay, and what we do, how do we do the file handling? So we will use the open function. Okay, open function with, there are different modes. So when we are working with the files, so we take a file with a file name, of course, and then that file you can open either in the read mode or in the write mode or append mode. So these are the three different modes which we can use. R is used for read. Read means you just want to read the data from it. You don't want to write back. Okay. W is used for writing. If you want to just write the data, no reading. Okay. And A is that the file already exists and you want to append the data to it. You don't want to create a new file. If you do W, W means you are creating a new file. Okay. Opening a new file, blank file. A means if a file already exists, then it will append to the bottom of the file. If the file does not exist, it will create a new file, empty file. After using the file for any processing, we always close it, okay? Because we don't want to keep the file in open state. Otherwise, some of the programs may be blocking access to that program because one program is already using it, right? Sometimes the files may be locked when they are being used by some other program, or your system may not even reboot sometimes because a file is in use, some file is being still edited. Okay, so what you should do is you must close, use the close method in order to release the resources and prevent data loss. So mm, if any file you're opening, you must always close this file after you are done with the processing. We use the write method, writing to the file. So we use the write method. Okay, we take the file object dot write, okay, method to add text data to the file. If you want to write the text to the file, then you can use the write method. Same way we have, if we want to read from the file, we will be using the read or read line method, okay, or read lines method. These three are there. We will see the examples of them: read, read line, and read lines methods. Okay, we will see how do they work in a short while. File modes, we have R, W, A, and X. Okay, there is B. B is for binary. Okay, T is for text, and plus is for you want to update. Basically, you want to allow updates. So if you are opening a file if you're opening a file in W plus mode, okay, W means you want to just write the data to it, okay, the new data you are writing. A means you are just appending the new data, okay. But if you say W plus or A plus, that means you want to write and update as well. If there is some old data, you might be willing to update their data as well. So plus is for update. So let's see, how can we create a file? So simple, if we talk about creating a file, so we can use the open function and open it in the W mode to create a file. Then we can use the open function. Okay, the open function returns a file object, right? Which can be used to write to the file. So what happens if we are creating a file? So new file that is created, that will be a file object actually. Okay, so I can call it student file or accounts file or whatever, right? I can give it a name just like I give to any other variable. Okay, same way I can give a name to a file, that will be a file variable you can call, or file object. And on that, these methods, open method, write method, close method, you will be performing. So what you will do, in order to, once the file is opened, then you can execute write method in order to add text data to the file, or you can use the close method to close the file and release the resources. Once, suppose you have to write 10 student records in a file, and once the records are written, you want to close the file so that resources are not being used, file is not in the locked state, and then you can some other program, or you can reuse that file later on. In order to read from a file, we use again the open. First of all, you will be opening the file, but this time we will not open in the W mode. For creating the file, we open in the W mode, but for reading from the file, we use it the R mode. Okay, so we do read only mode. Use the read method to read the entire content of file. You can use the read line method to read a single line from a file, or use the read lines method to read all lines from a list. Close the file using the close method, okay, after reading is over. In order to append the data to a file, you use the open method, open function again, but this time the mode is A. And I told you, append means you want to retain the previous data. If you use W, and suppose a file with that name, the file that you want to write to already exists, it has some data. If you open it with the W, it is going to overwrite that file. Okay, overwrite means all the previous data will be lost and a new file will be created. But if you want to retain what you did in the last session, if you want to persist whatever is already in the file and just add a new data to it, you must open the file in the A mode, A or append mode. Okay, so this will create a file. If it doesn't exist, the open append data to it if it already exists, right? And if doesn't exist, it will be created, right? And if already exists, it is reading, opening the file, and allows you to write any new records that you write. These will be appended to the end of the file. The write method is used to append the text data, same way as we did in the write method, and close method is used to close the file. Next is modifying. Okay, modifying data in Python files. So in order to modify, basically what we do, okay, for complex operations in the file, sometimes we read the data. So the data that we read, we load it into a memory variable, okay, and then in the memory variable we can do the processing and we can write the data back to the file. Okay, so suppose a file is there which contains some configuration settings, and so if you want those configuration settings to be read, so you can read the complete configuration, you can modify the settings. After the modification, you can write them back into the file. Okay, maybe just in the W mode, and then the new settings will be saved over there. And of course, after you are done with your processing, you can close the file using the close function. We read about dictionaries in our previous sessions. So dictionaries allow us to store, to prepare the data in the key value pairs format, right? So we can have multiple keys and the values corresponding to them and store that data in braces, okay, separated by commas, and we call it a dictionary. So if you are having a dictionary, that dictionary is going to, you know, if you want to persist that into uh, a file, then you will do it. You will just dump that data into a file, and usually we do it using the JSON uh, dump method. So we open the file in the W mode, just like any other file we just saw in the previous slides too. Then we will do JSON.dump method. JSON.dump method is used to write dictionary to the file in the JSON format. So here you will have JSON.dump method, and you will specify the object that you want to write to. Okay. Use JSON.load to read back contents of the file back into the dictionary. Okay. And this will convert the dictionary into JSON string and store it in a file. Okay. What is JSON? Okay, I just spoke about JSON. So JSON is nothing. I think in one of the previous classes also we discussed about JSON. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Note it down. JSON is JavaScript Object Notation. It is a lightweight data interchange format. What does it mean? Data interchange, I told you, sometimes we need to transition data, transfer data from one program to another program. Okay, from one server to another server. And the purpose of this is some of the work we are doing at one place and the remaining work we want to do be doing at the other place. Okay, in other program. So how do we do this data exchange? In a particular format, that could be JSON or XML. Okay, so here we are talking about JSON. So JSON is a lightweight data interchange format. It is easy for humans to read and write. It is easy for machines to parse and generate data. It is based on a subset of the JavaScript programming language, and it is used to transmit data between a server and a web application as an alternative to XML. Okay, XML is another format which we are going to just see. So what is XML? XML stands for extensible. Note it down. Extensible. X is taken from here. Markup. M is taken from here. And language. That is L is taken from here. So the standard markup is it stands for extended markup language. Okay. A markup language that defines a set of rules for encoding documents, designed to store and transport data, uses tags to define elements and attributes to store the values, both human readable and machine readable. And one very common, if you know about HTML, HTML in itself, HTML format in itself is XML. Okay, so how we write it? We usually do writing an XML. Okay, is you do using these angular brackets. So anything, suppose I'm saying student. Okay. So I will write the student, define the student in student and slash student. If I'm writing this student and slash student, I hope this is visible to you, the text in the green. Give me thumbs up if it is visible. Okay. So, and let's say student, I want to write the name. So name, say John David. So John David. Okay. This is one simple XML. I can have more information about this student. Say age 14, and I will say slash age, marks slash marks. So is it making some sense? So we are having a student John, age 14, marks 88. Okay. So we have the opening tag, closing tag, opening tag, closing tag, opening tag, closing tag, opening tag, closing tag. So that's what we're talking about here. Uses tags to define elements. Okay. So here we have, this is the one XML, simple XML that you are looking at. Okay. So where you have a student named John David, age 14, and his marks are 88, right? And always remember in XML, whatever the tags you open, these must be closed with the slash and the tag name. And same way, if you have taken a look at XML at the HTML level, you will notice there is also HTML slash HTML, okay, body slash body, head slash head, and that way all the tags are defined. Okay, I'll take this off from here. So XML is a markup language that defines a set of rules for encoding documents. So if you want to store some data, so XML was prior to JSON, XML was very popular, and it used to be used to transfer data from one program to another program, or within one program, from one section of the program to another section of the program. Okay. And it is designed to store and transport data, uses tags to define elements and attributes to store the data, both human readable and machine readable. Now, JSON and XML use cases. What are the common use cases for JSON and XML? So we use it for data interchange, commonly used for transmitting data between a server and a web application. So you are dealing with a lot of web applications on daily basis, like Gmail, for example. So you send your emails, right? Many other programs you might be using on daily basis, and when you type in some data, so they transfer to the other end, So some of the applications use XML, some use JSON, or some may be using some other formats in order to transmit the data from one location to another location. But XML and JSON are very popular formats in order to exchange the data. Configuration files stores configuration settings in a human readable and easily editable format. API response. So sometimes we write the APIs for communication between two applications. So one application exposes its interface to other applications. So if suppose want to write some application to connect and communicate with other application, then the other application, we will request the other application to provide its API access. Okay? Application Programming Interface. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So API is Application Programming Interface. It is used so when two programs have to communicate with each other, okay, maybe a server side application and a client side application, then they might be having server may expose one API, client consumes that API, and via this API the data is passed on to the server side. Okay, and same way in the response, servers can send the data back to the client and client can show you the results. So for example, if you are logging into Gmail and you enter your username and password, what happens, your username and password is being passed via API to the server side. So Google is transmitting your data to the server side to authenticate and authorize you whether you have access to that particular account. And if you have access to the account, you are taken to the inbox. If not, it will say invalid credentials. Okay, incorrect password or some other error it might be showing you. So that happens when such APIs are being communicated. Okay, so when the application, your front end application, where you are password and you say submit or login, then your details are being sent via an API to the server side application, and then server side application checks if the details received are correct, if there is a user existing, if the password is correct, and if the user has access to Gmail, then it will allow you, it will authorize you and sends a response back and says to the client, yes, he is a valid user and here is the inbox. Okay, so then it can redirect to the inbox and retrieve all your emails, list them on the screen. You can then do the different working, and every time you do any click on any of the email, you click a button or something, so some data from your system is being transferred to the other end, and most of the times there are one or the other APIs being used for that purpose. And the data storage. Okay, the data storage, we use JSON and XML for data storage as well. So we can store, as we just learned about the files, so we can generate some certain outcome, okay, or we may have some input or some output in the form of a file, and that file may be either in JSON or XML format. So we can store the data in a structured and organized way, both locally and in the cloud, in either of these two formats, JSON or XML. All right, let's go to the next slide. JSON file handling in Python. Okay, to use the JSON, okay, if we are working with the JSON files, we use a method called load method. So we use JSON.load to read data from a JSON file. Okay, use JSON.dump to write Python objects to a file in JSON format. We just saw in the previous slide, we use JSON.dump to write a dictionary to Python to a file in Python. Okay, and dictionary we know it is enclosed within opening and closing curly braces, and key value pairs are there. So the same, that itself, a dictionary itself is a simple JSON, you can say. So we can use the json.dump method to write Python objects to a file in JSON format. File handling operations like opening and closing files are same for as for the text files. And then we use the open method to ensure proper file and uh, closing if exceptions occur. Same way, we have different methods available to process the XML files. So if you are having an XML and you want to process the data within XML, there are certain methods available. Don't get confused over here, but some are very simple methods. Okay, like find all, iterate, iter, or to locate specific elements. Okay, we use element.tag, element.attrib, and element.text to access element data. Okay, if for an element some attributes you want to get, or tags you want to get, or the text you want to get, you can access. uh, Modify the XML content using element.set, sub element, and remove methods, and write modified XML back to a file using element.tree.write. So element tree, we use etree, we use xml.etree dot element tree to parse and navigate XML data. Okay, so XML is a tree structure, right? So there is a root node, and then there are child nodes, and then child to child. So we have multiple such nodes embedded within each other, okay, in the XML tree structure. And we will just shortly go and see some of the examples. Let's quickly finish these slides. CSV. CSV is a very common and popularly used format, which is just a plain text file. Okay, but this text file contains the data in comma separated values. Okay, it's a plain text file for storing tabular data. Each line in the CSV represents a row, each value separated by the commas. Okay, so suppose about a student, we just saw how a student record was being represented. Now here I can do the same thing in CSV in very simple way. Suppose I want to write John, comma, age 14, marks 88. Okay, and maybe I write city, whatever, New York, right? So this is one record. Now I can write another record, David, 1467, let's say Edison, right? So I can this way. So what is this? It's a comma separated file. So if I have one record, comma separated, and if I write this data into a file and save this data with this file with a name, okay, that becomes a CSV file. And usually the CSV files have the extension .csv. Okay, so .csv or CSV is the extension for the comma separated values format, CSV format. And it is very standard and very common, and many applications understand how to exchange data using CSV. Many of your banks support exporting the data to the CSV, because it can be easily opened in a notepad editor, and you can also open it in Excel, you can open in Numbers in Mac, right? So multiple different applications support .csv format, so it becomes easy for data exchange between two people or two applications, right? Plain text file for storing tabular data format. Each line represents a row, each value separated by commas. Widely supported and can be opened in any spreadsheet software tool like Excel or Google Sheets supported. Use Python's CSV module to read and write data uh, from to and from a CSV file. So we are going to read modules in our next class. Okay, but here you just understand module is more like a library which is providing you some ready-made code to read and write files from CSV. So there is a CSV module available in Python. In order to work with the CSV file, CSV format, you can use Python CSV module and very easily perform read and write operations to CSV files. Some of the common uses for CSV files are data analysis, widely used for analyzing and visualizing. Okay, so data analysis, CSV is used for data analysis, widely used for analyzing and visualizing data in tools like Excel or Python libraries. It is also used for data exchange, simple format for exchanging the data between different applications and systems. Data storage stores tabular data in structured and human readable formats. For configuration, storing the configuration settings for applications and systems, just like we read about XML or JSON, those can also be used. CSV can also be used for the same purpose. Okay. And logging records, events, transactions, or other information in a structured format for easy analysis. So we can do pretty much the same operations. Okay. Ultimately, it is data, right? So data can be written in either JSON or XML or CSV or even XLSX. Different formats are there, different applications, different tools that you use for data processing, data handling. These tools support different formats. Okay, so we should adopt the formats which are commonly used, which are largely supported by so many applications. So that's why we popularly work, because this is not just like you and
It's
me
8
are
o'clock.
exchanging the data, but it is worldwide. You may be exchanging data with anyone, and they may or may not have Windows, they may or may not have Mac, they may or may not have Notepad, but one or the other application they will have to read or write plain text files. So usually we support the formats which are plain text format, okay, and JSON, XML, and CSV. All these three formats are in plain text files. You can easily open them in any of the editor. It may be your Notepad editor in Windows, it may be, VI editor on Linux or Unix operating systems, okay, or a text edit application you can have on the Mac. So irrespective which platform you are using, okay, if you are sending the data in JSON, XML, or CSV formats, this is 99.9% chances the person at the other end will be able to easily open and read the data. Okay, if it is in a different format, suppose you are sending an XLSX file, then you cannot read it unless you have a Microsoft Excel application. If something is in Google Sheets format, then only Google Sheets will be able to understand that format. However, some of the applications support like that application, right? Interoperable uh, formats are there. So these days, like even Google Sheets can understand Google Excel, XLSX format. Okay. But both Google Sheets and Excel, Microsoft Excel, they understand .csv format. Okay. In if you're on Macintosh operating system, there is a numbers application that also supports XLSX and the CSV these days, right? So these files can be easily interoperable among these applications. So how to do the CSV handling? So you use the CSV module to read and write and process CSV files. There is something known as CSV reader. So CSV reader helps you to read CSV data from a file and return a reader object. So what happens, as I told you, there is a module available, CSV module. So you use the CSV module in order to read, write, and process the CSV files. So when you are reading, suppose the CSV file already exists and you want to read the data from the file, you will be using csv.reader. Okay, CSV reader. And this CSV reader it reads the file, reads CSV data from a file and returns a reader object. And same way, when you want to write data to a file, then you have to use csv.writer and it writes the data to a CSV file. If you have the dictionary data written, dictionary format data, then you can simply say csv.dictReader reads CSV data into dictionary format. So it reads the data and stores in the dictionary format. And same way, it writes the dictionary data to a CSV file. That is also possible over here. All right, so this is for today, means as far as today's scope we have. Okay, today's curriculum. Let's revise these and we will see some examples. Okay, first of all, tell me top level, did you understand file handling? We discussed about file handling in Python. Okay, we discussed read, write, and append mode. We discussed how to create the file. So in order to create a file, you have to open it in W format with the in the W mode. Okay, so W mode is for creating a new file. A is for opening a file, writing to a file at the end of the file. Means we want to preserve the previously written data in the file. We don't want to be emptying the file. Remember, if you open a file in W mode and there was some data in it, that will be overwritten. Okay, file will become blank as soon as you open the file in W mode. So be careful about this. Okay, open function we saw, write and close. Same thing we do for reading the file. If you are reading the data from the file, you use the R mode. If you have to write to a file to the end of the file, you use the A mode. Modifying data in Python files. So open the file in the W mode. Okay. So basically what you can do, there are different ways of modifying the data in a file. Okay. So we will see some of these examples and then you will get to know. Storing dictionaries in files. with Python. So as I told you, a dictionary is nothing but a JSON. So we use JSON.dump method in order to write and load to read. We saw what is the JSON format. We saw what is the XML format. We saw, you know, uh, JSON and XML use cases, JSON file handling. So if you have to read the data from a JSON file, you can use JSON.load method to read and JSON.dump to write to a file. In XML, we use XML.etree.elementary to parse and navigate XML data. Okay. Find all, and iterate. We have use the element.tag, element.attrib, and element.text to access the element data. Modify XML content using element.set, sub-element, and remove, and write modified XML back to a file using element tree.write. CSV, comma separated value, plain text file for storing the tabular data. Each line represents a new row, represents a row, each value separated by commas, widely separated, and can be opened in spreadsheet software. Use Python CSV module to read, write, and process CSV files. And we have seen some of the common use cases of the CSV files, and these are for data analysis, data exchange, data storage, configuration, and logging, right? And in order to handle the CSV files, if you want to read or write CSV files, you can use the CSV module available in Python, and that provides a CSV reader and CSV writer and dict reader and dict writer in order to read or write data to the CSV files. Okay, so let's see some examples. Okay, we will go to the coding screen, and before I start coding, do you have any questions on what we discussed just now? Prachi, Angel,
सर आज का टॉपिक थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजिंग लग रहा है सर। कहते हैं
confusing.
कि भी प्रैक्टिकल थोड़ा प्रैक्टिकल होगा तो थोड़ा सा समझ में आए।
Agree, totally agree. Yes.
या
So
तो ऐसे फाइल ज्यादा नहीं किया, एक उस पे मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा उस फाइल का।
don't worry. It is new. It is a new topic. Okay, and we have not seen any practicals. Not any programs we have seen yet. So I can understand. It may not be straightforward, clear. That's why it was very important, to first know what we are discussing. Okay, so I wanted to give you an introduction, and now let's see some of the programs. Okay, so you understand how to create files using Python, how to read the data from the files. Okay, we were doing some programming in the last session, if you remember. So we were doing a program for the hospital reception, where we had received data about the patients who are coming in, right? We can extend that program in order to persist that data into a text file. Okay, whatever the patients are coming, every patient which is coming in, I want to write its record into a file. Okay, so we will just take up those programs. Okay, let's quickly go to our folder. So last time we wrote multiple programs here, And did we store the hospital one? I think it was senior citizen, right? Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so this was one program, Welcome to City Hospital, and we were identifying, okay, we were adding the patients to the senior citizen or the non-citizen senior citizen list. Okay, so let's take this program. We will extend this program. So let's see vi senior citizen dot py. Okay, I will make its just a minute. I want to create a version of it, copy of it. So cp senior citizen dot py to senior citizen csv dot py. All right, and I'm going to open this one, senior citizen csv dot py, and this program I'm going to extend. Okay, so now one of the things, as we are going to be writing, what my goal is, all the patients that enter their data, okay, they are entering their patient name, the age, and the city, right? We want this data to be
Show
stored
your
in
screen.
a file. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir. Now it is clear.
Now it's visible. And now, is it still visible?
सर बहुत छोटा लग रहा है सर.
क्या हो गया? छोटा हो गया.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now it's better.
Yes, sir. But
Okay. Do you see my cursor movement?
yes, sir.
Okay, great. So the first thing I'm going to do here in the beginning, I'm going to add import CSV. So what import CSV does is I want to read and write the CSV module we just saw, right, in the slide. So I want to be writing or reading from a CSV, and that's why we want to import the CSV module. Let's just see. I'm not doing anything. I have just done import CSV. Would like to see if there is an error or not, right? Let's see. Python and senior citizen csv.py. Okay, my program still works. So I can say John, age 34, patient city, Washington. Okay, and what happened? It to non-senior citizen because the patient is under 34 years of age, right? But yet I'm not writing it to a file. I'm not writing it to a file. So what I want to do, I can say and from ends, I go back to my code. Let's extend it further. So I just import CSV means this import CSV feature is enabled. Now I'm going to do some in order to write to a file, right? So be doing a writer object. Okay, so I'll be opening so here somewhere either in the beginning or here you can do open a file name. I'm giving the file name I'm giving as scdata dot csv. Okay, this is my file name, scdata.csv, senior citizen data. And I want to open this file in A mode, append, because I want to be writing the data into the file. Okay, and if the data is already there, if few records are already there, I don't want to be overwriting them, because every time you run this program, this statement is going to be executed. If I write w here, what it will do, every time it opens scdata.csv, if there were 10 records created earlier and now you are running the program again, so those 10 records will be cleared. Okay, it will become a blank file. So every time you use w, you are going to create a new file, but I don't want that. I want a means if the file does not exist, it is going to create it the first time. And if file already exists, in that case, it is going to add new records to the end of the file. So I'm doing open scdata.csv a new file as file. Okay, you can call it csv file, you can call it scdata file, or you can call it patient file, whatever you like. Okay, now the file is open, and in this file I would like to write a record. Okay, so we do what? In this file is open, I want to open the csv writer. Okay, so what I can do is, let's put all this writing into a function. I can create a function here separately, just to, because this is the code that I may be using anywhere in the file. Any record I want to write to the function, I can just say so I'm writing add patient. Okay, I can pass on the file name here. Okay, so I'm passing the file name variable here, and in this I hope my screen is still visible to you guys. I'm writing this writer object, indenting. Is this clear? Add patient function I have just written. Is this clear to you guys? Give me thumbs up if it is visible. Okay. And I want to write one more function. Okay. Because the data is there, I would like to be writing one more function, and this function is to list all the patient records. So I'm using here a CSV reader. Okay, so what I'm doing is, so what we are doing is, we are using add patient. Oh, this is the add patient function. We are writing another function as view patients. Okay, so we will be passing the file name, will be then with open file name in read mode as file. I want to be performing these operations. Okay, Now here we already have this code. So this code, we know this code is executing every time. So I'm just doing file name equals patient. So my code starts here. Code execution begins here. Okay. So I want to have a file called patients.csv. Rest of the code I already written. Okay. Now, once the data is received, so I'm getting the entered, I'm getting the age entered, I'm getting the city entered, right? After that, I might be doing all this processing if it is senior citizen, non-senior citizen, but before that, I want this data to be written. Okay. And for that purpose, I'm going to be calling the add patient function. Okay. So I'll be creating the patient data, right? Patient data is in the dictionary format. So I can create here. So let's say I'm creating patient underscore data equals, and what data you want to write. So you have the patient name, you have the age, and you have city, right? The three parameters you had. So this is my patient data. Sorry, I put an extra trace here. And these three values, I will write them to the patient file. And I already have a method that we defined above called add patient, right? So in the beginning, we had written this method add patient. So what I'm doing is I'm calling this function, okay, add patient. I'm passing the file name. File name we already defined. It's patients.csv. And we have, I'm passing here what I want to write. I'm passing the patient data. Okay. So, and notice what I did. I put patient's data, the values within curly braces, and I'm putting just the values, not the key values. So would someone tell me what data structure is patient data? Is it a set? Is it a dictionary? Is it a tuple or something else?
Set.
Yes, it is set. All right, good. So this is a so I'm creating the patient data and I'm calling the add patient over here. Now in the add patient function, okay, so let's see what happens. So we did open the file here. So we should be doing file closer as well, right? So we did file dot close. You have to close the file here. And same way here also I will do. After I'm done with printing the records, I want to be doing file dot close. Let's quickly check. Python senior citizen CSV dot py. Okay, something went wrong. Says file is not available. Okay. Line number 7. Okay. This is not needed. You are not. Okay. So we are actually doing a mix of the tabs and the spaces. That's why we are getting this issue. Let's quickly go back. Okay. Okay. Let's try. Uh, 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 Indentation error, unexpected indent for row in reader. See. So okay, I think this indentation, it should start from here because it's the same level, right? All right, excellent. So now we are able to make this work. So let's put some data. We enter John, age 56, patient, city is New York. All right. Then it is going to NSC list. We say David, patient age is 89. He is from, say, Los Angeles. Okay. Now, I just say end. Let's see if my file is being created. So I do see there is a file called patients, and I type patients.csv, and here is I have both records stored here. Okay. Uh, John, New York, and 56, and David, 89, and Los Angeles over here. This is unordered data. Okay, and this is because sets are unordered. Okay, we stored it as a set, and that's why this data is coming here as unordered data. Sometimes it is 56 John New York, or David 89 Los Angeles, whatever the format the data was stored, but the data is coming here. That is good part. We will just see how we can get this thing rectified. Okay, in order to avoid this situation, so we can rather prepare a text string and write it into the CSV file. That we can do, and then later on we can read and split the data and store in a dictionary, or some other format. So let's go back. Now suppose I want to call this method view patients. So after I'm done, so maybe once I do end, okay, uh, I want to print. So basically this is the loop, right? It keeps on going, and when it is done, then at the time I want to be calling, I say print, and the way I did, I say star and patients. Okay, and here I would like to call the method view patients. And let's see what happens this time. I'm going to enter the data John, age 67, city New York. Okay, then I say uh, David 45, Edison, and let's say I do end. Something went wrong. Okay, view patients is missing. Okay, sorry, there were some parameters we have to pass in this. Sorry, and in the view patient method, we have to pass the file name that we want to be viewing the data from. So I'll be calling it with file underscore name. File underscore name. So let's execute it. John, age is 67, New York, and let's say David, 34, Los Angeles, and see if this. So what it does now, what is happening? I just entered 2 records, okay, but how many you are getting? You are getting 5 records here, because the 3 records that were created earlier, okay, these 2 were created in the first shot, these 2 in the second shot, these 2 in the third shot. We are executing it again and again. Every time the records are getting appended to the CSV file. And how does it this file looks like? Cat patients data patients.csv. So you see all these records are being maintained over here, and that's what we call if you see ls minus ltr, so your file size is getting increased every time. So earlier it was 40 bytes, now it is 115 bytes. So you will be able to, you know, kind of you are preparing, you are having a persistent data. Now the program is ended, but still if you want to see which were patients that are registered in the hospital, you will be able to do cat patients.csv over here, right? And you can see the records that are created. Okay, so today we have seen how to read and write data to the csv files, and for this we have written this the same program that we wrote in the last session. We are extending it. We wrote two methods here, add patient and the view patients. Okay, what we are doing is we are doing open with open file name. R is the file open mode as file. This can be any name you can call it, file name, a csv file or whatever, right? And you are using the reader object to read the file when you are to list the record, so you are using reader. And when you want to write, you are using the writer over here. In the writer, you say writer dot write row, and you are passing the patient's data, whatever the data you want to write over here, that you can put. And same way, once you read in the reader, you will be doing reader equals csv dot reader file, and for each row in the reader you want to print the row. Okay, and finally remember to close the file that you opened, it must be closed as well, right? So that we just saw the close function. So any file you're opening must be closed, right? So that your data is transitioned to the file. Sometimes the data remains in the buffer, it is not stored in the file, and that creates sometimes you may lose some data. So always remember to do the file closer. So I'll uh, leave this here, and would share this recording with you guys and the slides, so that you can look at it and you can prepare this program yourself and see how it is working. So try to do it at home. I'll be sharing the complete file also with you guys. Okay, and you can just copy and paste and execute it as well. Okay, so that if you are means, but better you write it yourself, because once you write yourself you will feel some small issues here and there. Okay, and that will give you a more comfortable more, it will give you more comfort on python. So that's why, like, I would avoid sharing, but just for reference sake, right, go through the video and the slides. Okay, so that you can see what exactly is written here, why your code is not running if it is not running. Okay, and try to solve the problems as they occur, because more problems you face, it means you're doing something. You try to solve those problems, and that's how you will learn. Okay, all right, so that's it for today. We are going to connect Monday, okay, for the next class. And in the meantime, if you feel any problem, feel free to share on the WhatsApp group. We'll try to solve those problems over the group. Okay, and the next class, by the next class, try to go through, you have time, okay, for the weekend. So go through these different sessions happened so far, up to file handling, because we are going to extend this program. Okay, in the next week we are going to learn about modules. Okay, how to use some modules, and we will see how to use some math libraries, etc. And then we are going to complete this program as our project. Okay, so this becomes our small project where we are trying to use all the concepts, the functions, the branching, the looping, and everything we are trying to put up in this code, and we will make it like a complete small Python project, end to end, where you are reading, writing, you are using the files. Okay, you're using the modules. Pretty much all the learning that we are covering in this course will be covered in this small project that we are making. Okay, so right now we are already in the process. We will extend it further and make it much better. Okay, so that it becomes a complete program, at least to some extent, some basic operations it can start doing. All right. So thank you very much for today. We are going to connect on Monday for the next class. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.